Where's Steve? Superintendent's not here yet.
Mrs. Clark, are we waiting for the superintendent or are we continuing? Thank you so much.
Steve Risser's here.
Okay, very good. Very good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome tonight to our meeting, but we have two public hearings prior. So before we start our meeting, I'm going to ask Mark Schoda to introduce our issues for the public hearing.
As usual, Madam Chair, I have to read the exact wordage into the record. Public hearing number 1, ordinance appropriating $6,920,000 for costs related to the Southington High School roof project and authorizing the issuance of $6,920,000 bond and notes to finance the appropriation, the amount of such bonds and notes to be reduced by the amount of project grants received. Madam Chair, this is similar to one that some of you saw probably 4 years ago now. As you know, we did the first phase of the high school roof for I believe it's $2.6 million. At that point, it went to referendum, approved by the public, and that part of the roof was done. This will be the completion of that particular roof at the high school. It also is going to include some solar panels, and I know that the superintendent may want to say a couple words on this one, but this one is very straightforward.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to come forward and give, oh, there you are. I'm looking over there.
I'm not sure there's much to say about a roof, but anyway.
If you would just fill in the blanks a little bit. Thank you.
So I can speak to either the roof or the athletic facilities.
It'll be separate.
We'll do separate? Okay. So we'll talk about the roof. And Mr. Romano, I believe Mr. Romano is here with me as well. If you have technical questions about the roof, he would be the guy to ask. But our town manager, I think, summarized it perfectly. This is a remaining portion of the roof that has yet to be completed. But we do think with the addition of solar, we may find some efficiencies at the end of the project as well.
Very good. I'd like to have the council ask any questions that they feel towards the superintendent. Yes, go ahead.
Just for clarification, Steve, if you could, for people who might see this and is not familiar with the previous upgrade, can you describe where the repairs will be, like which part of the school? Can you give a little bit more of a visual for folks so as this gets replayed, people will have a better understanding?
Sure, I'll have Mr. Romano speak to that in terms of what was done previously and what's in the scope of this project.
Thank you.
And while Mr. Romano's coming up, unlike the second public hearing, this one hopefully will have state reimbursement. So, Mr. Romano, if you can talk about that part of it, too.
Sure. Good evening, council members. So in 2019, we had replaced about 70,000 square feet of roof. That portion of the roof was over the auditorium, the tech ed wing, and the athletic wing. The portion of the roof that we're talking about now is 89,000 square feet. It's the remainder of the building. It is the main building, including the freshman wing. It's 27 years old. It had a 20-year warranty. We got our money's worth out of it. As the town manager has shared, there is reimbursement from the state. I can't tell you what the rate will be. I can tell you in 2019 we got 54%.
Very good. Yes, Chris?
Just thinking back to the previous
We're both
move
on it,
committee,
yeah.
which is Vicki, myself, and Pete.
Yes.
What is the what's the impact on the students? Because I know we were able to work everything so that it didn't impact.
Sure.
Except for summertime.
We would do it very similar to what we had back in 2019. We would bid the work out, assuming the referendum passes. We would hire an architect immediately, get all the drawings completed, and probably by the first of the year be out to bid so we can catch a good part of the bidding season. Contractors are hungry in January, not so much if you wait till March, April. So we would bid it, and hopefully we'd be bidding in January, February, March-ish, and we'd be ready to hit the ground running for June when school gets out. The solar portion may take a little bit longer, but that can be done while the building's occupied. We just want it to be weather tight.
Okay, great.
Very good. Any other questions?
Question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Talk a little bit about the solar piece. How would that work? Is it grant money? Is it we have to buy the panels, lease the panels? Just maybe get into it just a little.
Sure. So It would be, again, it'd be reimbursed by the state at that same rate, so we would want to do it ourselves, so we would own these solar panels. I know we have the PPO on the other ones, or PPE on the other ones, but these we would actually own. We will be going, right now it's a built-up roof, which has a 4-ply to it, quite heavy. We're going to go with a TPO roof, which is similar, or a PVC roof. They're a white roof. They reflect the heat, and they're considerably lighter, which will allow us to be able to put the solar on there without any engineering.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
okay? I'm actually very happy to hear that we're purchasing them because in the long range, it's much more cost-effective, and obviously the downside to doing that is you need the capital up front to purchase them.
Yes.
But I've asked for that for some prior projects, and we weren't able to do that. So I don't know, Mark, if you, what changed between? And again, I'm very thrilled that we are purchasing them. But
This
I'm
is
curious.
this is the first project where we're actually getting the reimbursement part of it. So previous to this, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no reimbursement on that part of it, from what I understand. So that's the reason why. And the other part of it is we don't get the tax benefit either, because the big part of it is you get the tax credits.
Yeah.
Best of my knowledge, Southington still hasn't paid state or federal taxes, so we don't get any credits for that.
Right. Okay. Great.
Very good. Anybody else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Right now, I'm going to open it up for the public if they have any questions or if they would like to speak in favor of this project. The microphone is open. Please give your name and address if you're in favor of this in this public hearing on this matter. I don't see anybody moving. So let's find out if there's anybody speaking against this public hearing, this item within our public hearing. Anyone speaking against it? Okay, well, I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter. That's last call. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Mark, could you lead us in the second?
Second public hearing tonight, Madam Chair, is an ordinance appropriating $16,945,000 for the costs related to the Southington High School Athletic Fields project and authorizing the issuance of $16,945,000 bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
Thank you. Who will be
And
representing?
the superintendent will be talking
Very good,
first.
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Sir?
Thank you. So what I just distributed to our council here is a summary of documents, one being a project timeline or scope and timeline, one being the project proposal outline, and one which is more of a drilled down, if you will, portion of the project relative specifically to the girls' softball field. We plan on doing that same thing relative to all of the fields within the facility that mirrors what we did for the softball field. One of the considerations the Board of Finance asked of us is to consider the debt service when we take this project on. And so one of the goals, and you'll see it within the project outline, was to stagger this over 3 years, the scope of the project. And you'll see in year one, the reason why we're at a lower number, so to speak, is because we are taking into consideration the debt service that'll come online with the roof if that passes referendum. And then the last year, which is the smallest year in year three of the project, is because there's the potential for taking on the elementary facilities project. And in year three, which would be year one of that project, if that were to go to referendum next fall and receive approval. So we're just trying to spread that out over time to minimize the impact of the debt service on the community. And so, again, that was what was requested. I did attend the Planning and Zoning public hearing as well as the Board of Finance public hearing, and we had these conversations, and they were pleased with the way we spread the plan out over the various phases. Not only did we try to be cost-effective in considering the debt service, we also tried to be mindful of the impact to the facility itself during the seasons of the various teams. There are 29 varsity programs at the high school. All not are outdoors, but tonight I was there with Mr. Risser. We were just there a short while ago on campus, and girls softball was playing, girls lacrosse was playing, boys baseball was playing, and so there's a lot of use of that facility. The other piece of information we feel is important to highlight is the benefit to not only the high school athletics program, but all of the youth leagues in town. And we have connected with the leadership of the various youth leagues to provide them, some information relative to the benefits of the community. Mr. LaPre has been part of those conversations with us as well.
Very good. Does the council have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, so the work that's going to be done right after the season ends,
Mhm.
what exactly is going to be done then?
Sure,
What's being done here?
Sure. So some of it is kind of what I'll call immediate safety related improvements, and then others are more long-range improvements. That work will not need to be repeated, so to speak. But I'll let Mr. Risser speak to that now.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Medancy. Hello, Council. Thank you for that question, Val. The short-term improvements where money has already been set aside start with softball at the end of the season in probably about 2 weeks, actually, when the softball season ends. We'll be going into the facility to provide dugouts. Part of this goes back to the equity issue that the town has dealt with and the school district has dealt with. So the girls will be getting dugouts at the softball field. There'll be some fencing adjustments made. There'll be bullpens added, similar to what we have at the baseball field. But this is a safety priority project to basically get the place safe before we go in and do what's in this plan for the renovation. And baseball, there's a lip that's very dangerous for the players. That's being addressed this summer. There's 4 other projects then to repair the cracks at the tennis courts, to patch up some of the track before the referendum, because we've gotten down to the asphalt this year to do some of our meets. We had to shift the straightaway to get those meets in, so that's being addressed this summer. And the last 2 things are related to the bleachers. The bleachers, on a limited basis, we're going to hope to do a limited railing section for senior citizens. And also, there's some safety fencing along the top of the bleachers and the sides of the bleachers on the home side that need attention so that no small children fall through. So these are all safety issues that, as Mr. Mancy said, precede this plan, if that's what you're referring to.
Right. So I guess just to follow up, when and I know we spoke about this with the consultant. When the dugouts then are put in, that they're not going to be able to be moved. So they're working, the work that's going to be done right away with the dugouts, the fencing, that's not going to have to be changed.
No, it'll
Because
be there at the varsity.
It'll go into, so when phase 1 starts, none of that's going to be done. Like we talked about the field, remember we talked about whether the field would be moved a bit, like where home plate would be versus where it is now.
Well, the field, there's no plans to shift the field.
No, so
The dugouts will be in the proper place. The fencing will be in the proper place. The field's going to be reconstructed.
Right,
the
but it's
actual
not going to be
surface.
shifted.
Not going to be shifted.
Okay.
Right, it's
Because I know
where it's
that
going
was,
to be.
that was the conversation that day that we were having.
Val, if I may, I think I heard the same
No,
thing.
no, not, this was not with the group. This was a prior meeting with the consultant, and myself and Steve and the softball coaches.
Well, just following up on that, because I think what I had heard, similar to the field shifting, was that the outfield was going to be made smaller.
Right.
To accommodate the move in the future of the lacrosse field moving closer to the softball field, because I think our softball field is currently larger than required
Right.
for the size.
Right.
So just to follow on your question, Steve, when you repair the fence, will you be moving the fence that 20 feet or so to make it smaller as well, or will we be repairing it and then have to replace it?
Well, we're going to repair it on the short term because there's some underwrapping of the metal fixture that has to be,
Has to
so
be done.
a girl doesn't fall and get cut.
Right.
But there'll be brand-new fencing done under phase 1 of this
Okay.
referendum.
So that
the
fence will
entire
have to be
fencing will
replaced.
replaced at
Okay.
that
That's not a big, I don't think that's a
Probably
big deal.
not, no.
I don't, I'm just more concerned about the dugouts. Like, we want to make sure the dugouts go in where they should be. And then phase one comes along and those dugouts stay and everything
Correct.
else is.
Yep.
So we're good with that.
We are.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Thanks, Steve, for the details on this. And just a couple comments first. I'm happy to see that we're doing some of the safety-related stuff, such as the railings on the bleachers. Those are sorely needed for handicap accessibility, as well as the back of the bleachers, and making those safe. So thank you. And I'm also really happy to hear about the track. It's sorely needed that we got to get this thing through to make some of these safety improvements. For that track is in really bad shape. Same with the tennis courts. I was mentioning a little earlier, my daughter plays on the tennis team. Of course, by the time this is done, she'll have graduated and won't see any of this, at least from the tennis side. But just today in match varsity play on the tennis courts, for those who are watching this, there's cracks like this in the tennis courts. And 2 times in one match did the ball go over the net in the middle of the court, and the ball hit the crack and went straight in the air. And that's not good. That's not good for tennis, of course. So looking forward to hopefully some of these improvements being made. I did want to follow up because I know previous versions of this layout that I saw, and I know that there's some concern. I'm assuming that if the referendum passes, and this is Steve, once the referendum passes, I'm assuming that there's a little bit of flexibility in your design and being able to adapt a little bit when the committees are put together. One of the concerns that I did hear from some of the tennis leads is that the newest plan that just came out removes one tennis court from 7 to 6 in favor of putting additional spectator seats there. And I think there's concern about losing a tennis court. So just something to consider there for the future once you start to really do the design work. Maybe touch base with the tennis coaches, find out what's working, what's not, and see if that is something that do you want to make that change from 7 as it is today to what it is 6 in this plan that you just gave us.
Well, if I could respond to that.
Yeah,
It's our intention to keep the 7 tennis courts. I'm going to research what you've brought up tonight, but our plan is to still have the same format, obviously moving back and creating longer baselines as we need to do, but still would be 3 courts in the front and 4 courts in the back.
And for those who don't know, because you mentioned the longer baselines, that is also a problem. Sometimes you see, a ball gets hit and it takes a high bounce. The tennis players go running back to play the ball, and they run into the fence because there's not enough. It doesn't meet regulation today, the baseline to the fence area. So it could actually be a safety issue as well. Do you have any idea of the phases, roughly percentage-wise, as far as funding? How does the 3 phases go? You might have mentioned it, Steve, but I might have missed it.
Yeah, it's basically, I would probably say, along the lines of a 30, 40, 20. So that's, again, taken because of the elementary facilities on one end and the roof on the other, in terms of the breakdown.
Thank you. And thanks for putting this together. This is very comprehensive, really good. Thank you.
And for the sake of time, I know you have another presentation tonight and an agenda, but on the website, we have built out a portion of our website that really goes into detail and drills down all aspects of the project. Also, the presentation of the master plan from Castle Booze was uploaded there, so anybody who wants to kind of hear the actual rationale behind a lot of the decisions relative to the master proposal, they can get that information firsthand from that recorded meeting. And any other information people have, we plan on putting some major signage around town between Panthorn Park, Rec Park, Memorial Park, the middle schools, the high school itself at the entranceway. The YMCA had said they'd let us put some signage there where people can just take QR codes and scan and drill down to right to the website and get the firsthand information that they're looking for relative to any portion of the project.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Last piece I would add is that your daughter will use those tennis courts still. Many people in the community use them on nights and weekends.
This is true.
The track as well, so hopefully she'll see the benefit to it someday.
And maybe if there's money there, we are adding lights to a bunch of places. It might be worth considering lights on the tennis courts too. You mentioned it is used quite extensively by the community. I think there would be a benefit there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, of course.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure, of course.
So, Steve, I was reading through this packet that you gave us, and it mentions, obviously, budget and COVID and cost. And
in the breakdown over the years of the 3 phases. Obviously, with COVID and material costs rising, would some of the Phase 3 stuff potentially be cut because of the dollar amounts overruns?
So we actually had, that's a revised number that we had asked Castle Boost to put together in consideration of both the labor shortage and the supply chain issues. So where the economy could be in year 3 from now is anyone's guess. But there's always a likelihood that you sometimes have to make difficult decisions throughout the scope of a project, just like we did with the middle schools. There came a time where we had to do some value engineering, because we had some cost overruns that we couldn't forecast. But I imagine there'll be similar, since this is a town project, I imagine there'll be some sort of small, facilities committee or building committee that when major decisions need to be made up, they'll be discussed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just ask?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
So the, where are we with the Title IX? Like if we do those safety features?
So with the way Title IX works is because they understand that there's funding, costs associated with improvements,
And we're
they
working
just
towards-
need to, and I've already submitted that, they need to see that you have plans to proceed. There's not a hard and fast deadline with what you have to have done and by when. So I've actually already spoken to the gentleman at the state, and we've talked, about. I had to share with him the capital plan and the strategic plan around this, the master proposal that show the enhancements to the softball field.
Okay. So we're not in any jeopardy of
No, nope.
of anything?
As long as we can show them that we're making a good faith effort to address it, so all of the documentation and what I've provided to them has met that.
Good, thank you.
Madam Chair, just one comment, and just again for people who might be watching this as a follow-up to Val's comment, anything that is outstanding for Title IX, it looks like should be addressed in Phase 1.
Yes.
It's one of our top priorities next to safety of the track and the tennis courts and some of those other safety-related issues are all into Phase 1. And also to Jack's comment, right, if for some reason costs, ran up, our safety main critical issues in Phase 1 and Phase 2
Would
should
be
be
have
funded.
been addressed, yep.
Thanks. Anybody else on the council?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you,
Chair.
Mr. Mancy. I would invite anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this proposed ordinance to come now to the podium, give your name and address, and you feel free to speak in favor of this. Anybody? Okay, I hear no one coming, standing up in favor. Is there anyone speaking against this project? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Both of the public hearings now are closed, and we are going to move directly into our regular meeting. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Jack Perry,
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky,
Here?
Michael Del Santo,
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo,
Here?
William Diedzik,
Here.
Tom Lombardi,
Here.
James Morelli,
Here.
Christopher Palmeri,
Here.
Victoria Triano.
I am here, thank you. Let us all stand for the prayer. I'm not sure who has it, but, oh, good.
Heavenly Father, tonight we pray for direction and courage. We need your help to define our path and courage to walk it. We ask your continued blessing upon Southington and her people.
Amen. At this time, I would like to invite Major Alex Riccadone, yes, it is Major now, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
All right, everybody, I'd like, item number 2, I'd like a motion concerning the minutes of our last
Motion
meeting.
to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? Any additions, deletions, anything? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Diedzik,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmeri,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Item number 3 is councilperson's communication. Paul, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I'd love, Madam Chair, I'd like to start us off. I appreciate that. I had the pleasure of attending the Unico Gold Medal award ceremony at the AquaTurf last week, honoring Michael DeFeo in town. And it was humbling. It was an honor to be there, first of all, with so many people who have done such great things in the community, and of course, for Mike DeFeo, who's contributed so much in our community. And he's on the Parks and Recs board. He's been involved in sporting and athletic activities throughout the community, including the turf and middle school sports fundings, and you name it. He leads the men's basketball league for many years. There's just so many great things that Mike has done. It was an honor to be there in your absence, Madam Chair, to present a town proclamation making that day, May 18th, Mike DeFeo Day in Southington on May 18th, 2022. So it was a great honor. Congratulations to Mike and his family for his dedication and his family's dedication so many years here in town. I'd also like to recognize Jim Morelli and Chris Palmeri. We're also there, Chris, as a past recipient of the award as well. So congrats again.
Thank you. We're going to just suspend council matter communications because we have a special presentation tonight for community welfare. I'm going to ask Deputy Chief to come forward, and Donna Ayer, the president, the executive director, excuse me, of Bread for Life. Are you just going to sit there, Donna, or are you going to get up? You are? You're just going to let the chief do it. Okay, very good. Welcome, Deputy Chief.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. I'd like to thank Donna Ayers, Missy Cipriano, Janet Mellon, and Mark Frazzolari. They've been instrumental in helping us with the presentation tonight. What we want to do is give you an overview of panhandling and what we believe to be, we're developing a community response to it. So why are we here? Over the past few years, we have seen an increase in panhandling activity within our community. Different community service groups have received questions dealing with panhandling activity. We also saw a spike in social media posting on panhandling, some people saying, don't do this, don't do that, do this. So the council chair, Council Chairman Triano, asked if we could get together and talk about the problem from a community response perspective. And that's what we've done, so we want to update you as far as we are so far tonight. So first, a snapshot of the community service. Over 1,000 families are signed up for food pantry. 200 voucher books for farmers market was distributed to income qualified senior citizens. When we look at holiday meals, last year, 548 Thanksgiving Day meals, 587 Christmas meals to families, all over 2,000 people within our community, 1,000 or more on each holiday. Assistance with clothing and household items and utility assistance. When we look at Bread for Life, their mission is to ensure no one goes hungry in our community. The soup kitchen, it serves a hot lunch every day at noon. Their 2021 information, over 10,000 lunches served on site, over 14,000 meals delivered to homebound clients, over 4,000 individual senior lunches were delivered, over 1,000 meals delivered to clients in local motels, and over 1,500 bags of groceries delivered in-house and homebound clients, drop-ins, and mobile pantry programs. So we highlight those two people because that's to show that we have an existing infrastructure in our community that can start working with this problem. Panhandling Overview, it refers to someone's request for support from a person they don't know. Generally, the support is in form of money or goods. The request can be verbally or non-verbally. In Southington, most people who are panhandling use non-verbal means to make requests in the form of signs that pull up and stand alongside busy roads, intersections, or businesses. Panhandling is protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has held the First Amendment covers charitable appeals. This is not an attempt to suppress the First Amendment. This is us trying to get a problem that's affecting our community, giving people the service they need. So we fully recognize and understand that panhandling is protected by the First Amendment. What's not protected by the First Amendment is aggressive panhandling. And that's when a panhandler approaches or speaks to a person in a manner that would cause a reasonable person to fear bodily harm or believe they're going to be the victim of a crime. And there's also a difference between panhandling and homeless. Panhandling does not per se indicate that someone is homeless. So what we did is we looked at our calls for service from a police perspective from 2019 to year to date. As you can see, 2019 we had 3 calls for panhandling, 2020 was 11, 2021 was 8, 2022 was 9. You can see the majority of them are on Queen Street, which makes sense. That's our high business district with traffic flow. So drilling down a little bit more, 31 total calls for service. In all the data from 2019 to year-to-date 2022, we've had 2 incidents of aggressive panhandling. One was in 2019, one was in 2022, and no arrests were required. So 2022 calls for service, we've had 9 so far this year. 3 of the 9 involved the same person. 4 of the 9, the person was gone prior to the police arrival, and the remaining 2 calls were different people. So what are the committee's goals? We want to develop a strategy town-wide for responding to those who panhandle. We want to provide information and raise awareness to town residents and organizations on ways to assist people who are panhandling. And we also want to maintain the quality of life for all the residents and visitors within our community. So our first action item is provide a custom community assistance plan for people who are struggling with respecting their rights and human dignity. And what this goes to is community services and Bread for Life have the infrastructure. So if we have someone that's panhandling and we can get them to that agency and we can say, okay, what do you specifically need? Because it's not one size fits all. So we have the ability in our community for them to sit with somebody and say, okay, here's the services you need. We're going to build you your custom assistance plan. And then if they are from someone from another community, they already have a network built where they could reach out to a neighboring community and say, hey, Bill lives in your community. Bill needs energy assistance and a place to stay and work together. So that's what we're trying to do. When we talk about a custom plan, it'll allow us to target specific needs, which will make us more efficient when we deliver our services. And then the next action item would be to raise awareness, to provide information to town residents and organizations about the services that we currently have. And we just highlighted a few: community service, Bread for Life, Faith Community, 211, and Mobile Crisis. This will allow us, what we're trying to do is when people, I'm sure we've all done it, I've done it myself, we give somebody $5 or $10 because we're saying, hey, we're going to try and help them. What we're trying to do is focus the money to where we know we can get help to the people. So if we can raise awareness to the public, they may say, okay, if we give the money to community services, Order Goods, or Bread for Life or something, we know there's a process in place where this person truly needs help. Southington has a program in place. I think that's, we all agree that's very important. Create a community guide for best practices. Again, this is to assist the people that are panhandling. It's also assisting the people that want to provide help. And it also minimizes the ability for people to use panhandling as a means to defraud the community. Because not everybody is, down on their luck, and not everybody is trying to scam us. I think sometimes we get into those extremes, and it's not. So if we have a program in place, hopefully down the road, people will say, oh, Bill's on the side of the road panhandling. I know Southington has a program in place, so we should be dealing it some other way. This is an example of what the city of Bristol is doing. They have these in their plazas. Say no to panhandling. There's a better way to give. Contribute to the town thing. 211's in there. So that's just an example of what we are considering. And then the last action item would be, and this is way down the road right now, would be to look at, is there any need for an ordinance to address aggressive panhandling? Bristol, Wolcott, West Hartford, I believe, all have ordinance in place. Some of the research we did do is towns took their existing soliciting ordinance and they adjusted it because it's kind of one and the same, so you're not simplifying. Because if someone is abiding by the panhandling laws, there's nothing we can do. But this is actually the last thing that we're even thinking about. We're thinking about support, customized support for people in our community, and to raise awareness to the community. We think those are our two important prongs first. So our next steps, we will continue to meet and formalize a plan. We want to be able to, our next presentation to the council would be our formal plan. Hopefully we can get feedback, review, and support, and then deploying the strategy and the plan within the Southington community. A final note, we all understand panhandling is challenging, but Margaret Mead put it best when she said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Every time I present, our community is special. I feel the best thing about Southington is when we have a problem, we band together, we get it done. I do not think this is any different. I think together we can truly make a difference, and we will, and we'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate that, Donna and Janet, and just appreciate so much. This was born out of a conversation that I've had with Janet and with Donna and Missy. I see Missy somewhere. Oh, there you are, Missy. Out of concern for the folks that are standing in plazas and on street corners, and what can we do to better help the situation? And so I appreciate all of your effort in this, and it's just the beginning. But I do want to open it up to the council. So, Chris, do you have something?
Just first of all, a question for the Deputy Chief. But before we do that, Donna and Missy, I know you're here, and I reached out to Janet. She couldn't be here tonight, obviously, but I want to thank you both and Janet. And she shared, of course, how much you both entities work in concert with each other. Our community is really very fortunate to have such caring individuals taking care of them. So thank you, and thank you for coordinating with all the efforts between Bread for Life and Community Services. Quick question. You mentioned some neighboring communities. Do you find that a lot of communities have ordinances in place, or is it more the Bristol approach? What's the more common way to?
We're still looking into it. There are, like I said, West Hartford, Wilkett, and Bristol, we know have ordinances. Bristol's ordinance specifically addressed aggressive panhandling. But if we decided down the road to put something in place there, like we could probably just add to our soliciting ordinance, because it's the same thing.
Right.
I just don't think right now we're at an ordinance level based on our statistics for how many we have. We have other options if somebody is being aggressive. So we would like to try to go the education route, the customization, and then we can look towards the tail end. Is there really an ordinance that's necessary? Because again, I mean, if we get an ordinance, then we have to get an officer there. You're trying to interact with somebody. Is this going to escalate to a bigger problem? And now we have a problem over somebody that was trying to get food or something like that. So, I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to curtail this with education and awareness. And then if we have to go to the ordinance route, then we can go down the road.
Last resort's great.
Makes sense.
Anybody else have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just
Mike?
almost an observation and maybe a question. So it's been told to me that there's a panhandler in town that brags to lots of people. He makes between $150 and $300 per day panhandling. So the question becomes, you had said education is important. So is the goal to educate the public, not to give to the panhandler, rather reach the outsourced community, either Bread for Life or Community Services, to try to help these folks? That's the whole idea, I would imagine. But if the public continues to give, I think the panhandler may say, no, I'm good, I'm making $300 on my own.
And that's absolutely the goal. The goal is if we can, because before someone gives money, if we can get our community comfortable to say, hey, Southington has a program, so if someone needs help, we can customize services for you. Then we will eliminate the person that's making the $300 to $400 a day, because there are people like that, and that's what this program's designed for. Because again, we've all done it, but if, and people probably, it's an afterthought, I could give the community services, I could give the Bread for Life. So our campaign will educate the whole community to how we can best serve panhandlers, and it should take care of itself.
Good. Thanks, Stacey.
Yes, Val?
Thank you.
Sure.
How many, do you have an idea of how many are from out of town? Like you wouldn't, do we have?
I don't. I know we have We have the few that we've dealt with have lived in town. I'm sure we've had some out-of-towners. I could get that information then.
I mean, you don't have to get I'm just thinking that, it's just a good point to bring up that I know that like Don and Missy, you guys can maybe contact the other towns. But that's interesting that if it's somebody from out of town and we're pushing our services that they don't want, right? I know, Don, I know we've talked about this a bit.
I don't know, should I come up here?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination, as Bill said, some people from our community and some from out of our community. And the whole point in this is that customized care plan. So do you have family? Do you have a job in another, do your kids go to school in another town? If that's the case and you want to get back there, let's contact who there can help you.
Okay, right. So trying to work with
And I
those
think
towns.
Part of what Donna said too is what we had said initially is, if we have somebody we identify, like someone calls and said, hey, there's a panhandler on Queen Street, we send an officer up there, I find out the person's from Bristol. Part of the program is we reach out to Bread for Life, we reach out to Community Services, we go back, we talk to the person, get a hold of their city, try and get them all set up. And if we get the town to buy into this and trust us, they'll know if somebody's panhandling on the side of the road, they probably truly don't want help, because Southington has a program where we try and help everybody.
Right, so then,
Right.
then the community starts to learn that
Right.
maybe these people are from out of town, and go to Mike's point, don't hand them the funds, get it to our Bread for Life or Community Services. I mean, it's a very difficult
It is because
situation.
you feel compassion,
Right.
and we want to feel compassion. We want to help those that need it. But in the same way, if there's a structure in place to let them see that there's help, real help available for them, I just so appreciate Donna and Janet and Missy and those that are on the front lines helping with the poor and the needy in town, because their heart is for the person. And so that's why we're looking into it. Paul, you had a question?
Can I just, Madam
Oh.
Chair, before I just want to have one more question, or just an observation. So on the ordinance, I did do a little bit of research on the federal laws. I think we'd have to be very careful, and we would obviously have to have it go through the ordinance committee and get a legal opinion on it. But the Supreme Court case, Reed, I don't know about it definitely protects panhandling, but the aggressive panhandling too, that would be questionable. So even the towns that have these ordinances, Bristol, Wolcott, West Hartford, I would say we would have to look into that and get a legal opinion, because from what I was able to see, those might not fly either. So, I know, and I agree that's probably, maybe we wouldn't even want to do that.
We put the ordinance in, because
Right.
this is not, the ordinance is like so far removed right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the argument could be made that if somebody is confrontational and they violate a law, we'll make the arrest under Connecticut General Statute.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, I mean, and
Right.
we wanted to put the ordinance in just as a point of, yes, that could be part of the problem.
Right, right.
But any type of ordinance would have to be vetted through the committee and everything else.
Yeah, just to make sure we watch that.
Yeah, thank you, Val, that's good. Paul?
Madam Chair, I was going to just reiterate, but you had mentioned, we do have, I think this is a great opportunity for us to educate our own community, and that's so many times, and Donna, I'm glad you're here, Bread for Life, Missy, it's such a great organization, but, you would think, because a lot of us here know what the organization is, and community service with Janet, so many people don't know what it is. And even just putting signage up, letting people be aware that there's these resources in the town that will help people like this, I think it's going to be huge, because we're going to funnel now all of our resources to these community organizations who do this day in and day out. And the more that we can funnel resources there, the stronger they are, the more that they can help people who really need it. So we really appreciate that. I did just want to recognize, because, you're working at Bread for Life, and Janet's working at Bread for Life, but there are community members who also volunteer as well. I know, we have Aaron, Candace, you guys are in the audience. I know that you did drives to help people. Mary and Melissa, I know you're always volunteering at some of these organizations as well. So the more that we get and funnel the activity and the funds to your organizations, the more people know about it, and we'll also volunteer there too, because we need the volunteers. So hopefully it accomplishes some of that as well.
And
From
get,
our
I'm sorry.
perspective, we're grateful for this teamwork with the police department and Southington Community Services for sure. For us, this is a human dignity issue, and that's why we're very interested in being part of this team, because we want to see each and every person in this community move forward on their journey as best they can. And we have the services right here in Southington to help move them on their journey, and we just want to make sure that we connect them, and that's why we're happy to be part of this.
Well, no other, Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank, obviously, Bread for Life, Missy, Donna, and Southington Community Services and all the other organizations and Deputy Chief. I think this is the right start. You know, me and Missy, we spoke about this. We ran into each other a few months back, and, you know, I think this is the right approach. I don't agree with an ordinance, you know, right off the bat, so I appreciate you guys looking, you know, at other ways of doing this. And again, I think Paul recognized a lot of people here today that help Bread for Life and Southington Community Services, but I think Paul, you know, didn't recognize, you know, himself, you know, and everybody else on the council that, you know, always tries to help out, you know, in this community any way we can. So when I heard about this, I was really excited to see this because, again, I've talked to some people that have been down on their own luck and they're giving to these panhandlers and they're taking food off their own table and they're struggling and they think that they are in a better spot than these people, and sometimes they're not. So I'm happy to see this because I'd like to see the funds go through these organizations so that they're properly being spent. So thank you, Madam Chair, for putting this on the agenda as well.
Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think all the things have been said already, but this is one of those policies that, we're reviewing or initiatives in town where other towns around the state are going to look at this and say, hey, did you see what Southington did? And it's an education issue for the public and for the people who need the resources. So we're going to see, I'm confident that other towns are going to start just putting this information out there. Again, this will be a chance for Southington to be a real leader. And lastly, a few years back, the Southington Town Council did a Bread for Life night, and that kind of stopped when COVID hit. So maybe this evening, I would say that the council, maybe we could schedule something if Bread for Life is doing that again. I think we should get that on the calendar for a summer evening like we did a few years back.
Great, that would be great. I think for one thing, for me anyway, it's a continuity of care. And so when you have, we know that Community Services does a great job, of course, Bread for Life, but we need to get the rest of our citizens hooked into the same message, that there is care in Southington, that people don't have to beg on the street. They can hook into what we have, and their life can be better and move forward. I love that idea, that we're moving forward together as a community, and we want to have the same message so that a member on the council and a school teacher and whomever in Southington, we're all thinking the same way. How can we move forward to promote dignity and a place for everyone in our town? So I want to thank you. We look forward to other messages as the committee continues. We just thank you so much for your time. Janet, if you're watching tonight, we thank you very much for all of your care, Mark, and everyone. So thank you all. Yes, did you have one more?
Just to add,
Yes.
to build upon what you said, if we're looking at signage, similar to what Bristol did, can we put maybe a QR code directly to Bread for Life and directly to community services so people can donate? Because a lot of times that's when people are thinking about making those donations when they see someone in need. I think that might be a great way to allow people to right then and there make that direct donation directly to the organization.
At that moment, when they see somebody,
It's on the sign, scan
Right on
the
the
QR
sign, take a
code,
picture of it.
and donate directly to either entity.
that's a great idea.
Right.
Yeah, Gloria, I see that hand. Yeah, if you're involved in this thing, sure.
I had a former student who, I believe he was in Meriden, and this was an issue. There's a lot of panhandling going on, and it was the same kind of thing. We want to be, concerned for these people, but we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And he came up with the idea of having, making bags, putting bags together. Had a granola bar in it, it had a little bottle of water, gloves, a hat, and it had a letter about where the people could get some help within the community. And they may have had groups at their high school put these together, hats and gloves from the dollar store or whatever. And they were given out to people to keep in the back of their car. And when they saw a person who needed some help, and it had a $5 Dunkin' Donuts card in it or something too, but it was a small thing, but it was easier to hand that to a person than give money. So we might be able to work with some groups in town to do that.
Thanks. Good idea. Very much. Well, thank you, everybody. Let's move on with more councilmatic communication. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Janet. And let's move on. Thank you, Missy. Other councilmatic communications. Anybody?
Madam Chair, I have something.
Yes, please.
I'm delighted to announce that 1 week ago, yesterday, Sunday the 15th, I think it was, you and I had the opportunity to go to the Manor Inn, where town resident Anthony Longo turned 100 years old.
Yes.
So we're able to offer a proclamation for him and just the things that he's done in this lifetime. And the funny little story I told is, like, I'm 50 and he's 100, so I said I'm going to find an infant now. So in 50 years, they can maybe give me a proclamation when I turn 100, but I probably won't make it to 100. But anyway, just some of his highlights. He is a World War II veteran. He worked for years at Southington Hardware and at Fansdale, and raised a family in town, and he's still going strong. He's a member at the Calendar House, and he's in the billiards league, and still plays in billiards pool tournaments, and he builds birdhouses, and one of his birdhouses made it to Italy. And he was a painter for years. He's done work for me, painting at like 84 years old. 16 years ago, he was still painting. So it was quite an honor. And these are, these members of our greatest generation. It was a really nice party that they threw for him. My parents were actually invited to the party, so it was very nice. Congratulations again to Anthony Longo for turning 100 years old.
It was fun. Thank you.
Very nice.
Who else? Anybody else? Yes, go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, I would just like to recognize a member up here on the dais this evening. As you mentioned earlier, Attorney Alex Rickardone got a promotion, actually, that was announced today. Attorney Rickardone serves in the Air Force Reserves in the 439th Airlift Wing, and today he was promoted from captain to major. So congratulations to Attorney Rickardone. That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
That's good. Anybody else?
Madam
Anybody
Chair?
else? Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so I had a resident reach out to me again in regards to our sidewalks, and they just think that we should be maybe, looking at, some of the safety concerns in town, and maybe like a capital improvement plan with sidewalks incorporated. This resident was near the Mount Vernon Road area, but I'm a strong believer that near the bike trails, especially, the residents that live near there, it'd be nice to see some, sidewalk improvements or adding some sidewalks so that walkers and stuff that are walking could easily get to them. So that was one of the things. And I also attended the informational session on the Route 322 and Route 10 bridge. And I have some concerns with some of the data that the state has. It's kind of dated, some of it. And I would love if we can have, through the town manager's office, request some of that data with the traffic studies. One of the studies that they did was over 5 years old, and their response was after COVID, traffic kind of slowed down. This past weekend with prom, the jamborees, the good weather, all throughout town, you were hitting lights everywhere. So I'd love to see, what they have for data and make sure it's not, biased or skewed towards them. I want to make sure that, I know they were at the last meeting, but I want to make sure what's being done is what's best for Southington. And that, cost, obviously I get it, we have to factor it in. But the last thing I want to see is just another light and another congestion in town. Especially some businesses over there. I spoke to some residents and a business as well, and they haven't seen some of the data either, and they've been asking for it. So I said I would mention at this meeting and try getting some of that data because, again, in that info session they had last Monday, they stated that they wanted to hear from residents as well as elected officials. So I attended it, and I just feel that, that bridge is one of my concerns. You know, they stated that back in, 2017, the study showed 5,000 cars a day going over that bridge. And I just think of, okay, 5,000 cars coming to a light, obviously is a concern. And if you break it down, was that 400 cars an hour? That's just a lot of cars coming back down to one part of another state road. So again, I just want to make sure it's what's best for our town at the end of the day. So if we could see if there's any updated studies that they could do, impact studies. I drove by the Cheshire development as well. It's 107 acres of mixed use, which that's going to, add a lot of traffic to Route 10. And again, I'm just concerned bringing a street, and adding a light. Public Works talks about not adding a light where West Street and Prospect Street is, because of bottlenecking and concerns of stop traffic. So I just think that we really need to look at this and just make sure that we're looking at all the data and we're doing what's best for our town.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Hearing nothing else, let's move on. Anybody else? Yes, Chris, go ahead.
A couple, sorry. I was looking in the minutes, just to tag along to what Jack was saying. I had asked last time for the public outreach for the residents in that area. I don't know if there was follow-through with that. The businesses, I know it's advertised, but I mean specifically contacting.
The state did the contacts to the businesses in the area,
Okay.
and we put it on our website.
Okay.
Well, to follow off that, I
that's what he
reached out to one of the businesses, and they have not seen, more in-depth drawings, and they're going to directly be impacted. So I think it's where our town kind of gets a little involved and maybe asks the question, because the question coming from the town to the state, I think they're going to respond a little bit faster, or I hope they would.
And that was exactly my concern last time, is that, I'd rather be proactive with getting the information out to those businesses if we could. I know it's on the website, but I mean, reach out to them directly. The ones in
So
direct
let me get this
proximity.
straight. So when he said he contacted the restaurants, or the businesses, they did not get the contact?
Well, they stated that they reached out and they still have not seen some of the data
Oh, okay.
or more in-depth drawings. They've seen some of the preliminary stuff, but they're also concerned. One was a resident, and one was a business about that bridge being removed as well.
I'll get the updated data from the DOT, and then we could always put that on our website if they don't put it on theirs.
Yeah, just Southington, obviously, we have more traffic each year, and I get it. They're maybe using, after COVID, some traffic declined maybe, to the cities where the office buildings, a lot of people working from home. But I think over the last 5 years in Southington, our traffic has gotten worse, and I just want to try being proactive on this.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Very good. Go ahead, Chris.
I had also asked at the last meeting to add to the agenda, which it isn't on here, a town policy on banners. So again, I was talking about specifically recognizing, for example, teacher appreciation, maybe a banner appreciating the police department, or the fire department, or town-run functions such as the Apple Harvest Festival. So I know, and again, I'm not looking for an ordinance, but I was looking more for a council policy. So I would request, again,
I'm sorry,
if we
Chris.
can.
I didn't think, I missed it when
All right.
preparing
Would
the
it be
agenda.
okay? Would it be okay to add it for next meeting?
Yes, of course, I have
Okay.
no problem with that at all.
Is it possible, Chris, or do you want to draft a policy, like a written policy? Because maybe
Sure,
you can draft a policy that we can then
That-
have for the next meeting.
Absolutely,
That would
that's
be,
fine.
rather than just opening it up and.
Sure. Again, all I'm thinking about is I understand we had debate with the flags, but
Sure.
putting a banner on Town Hall honoring
Yes,
town of Southington employees,
absolutely.
honoring a town function. So sure, I'll be.
I mean, it seems like a whole separate issue that's not part of what the previous discussion. I don't even know why
Because
to
it
be
was
honest, why
denied.
you even need to have a discussion.
Because the request was made and was denied.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to
We
the
should-
town manager about why it was denied, it was in reaction to the ordinance,
Yeah.
which is why I want something,
Yeah,
a
if we're-
policy.
If we're recognizing our teachers, our fire department, our police department, I don't know why we.
Well, I agree, Paul, but it was denied.
That's all
let's put it-
well and good, but I'm the one,
taken, Chris.
I'm the one,
All right.
I'm the one who says if we're gonna do that, we'll have to have a policy, because remember, and we've all read the Supreme Court, some of us have a little bit more legal knowledge than the others, but the bottom line is that you open that up, and that's why I think you need to have a policy. Without a policy, and I allow, thank you to the teachers, that's all well and good, but then I get a thank you to some other group, and then what do I do? So that's why I think the policy is important. That's what I told Mr. Palmieri, and we both agree that if we're going to do this, if we're going to have banners on the town hall,
Okay.
I want to have
And
a
I'll be
policy to
happy.
protect
Sure.
myself and the town.
Okay,
Anyone on this diocese disagree with it, I really don't.
Yeah, that's great.
I appreciate that,
Thank you,
okay.
Chris.
No
I just
problem.
slipped my mind.
A couple other quick things. I know with Public Works, Mr. Del Santo, Kevin Bedoyan reached out that he's unfortunately has to resign from Public Works. I request that we add Suzoni as his replacement. She previously served on Public Works, is a member of the Board of Finance, and I don't think she has any committee assignments, so
No, she
she's willing to serve again, and I'd like to advocate to put her back on Public Works.
I don't think Kevin's given his resignation yet, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
I didn't see it.
He told me he
Oh.
doesn't think he's not going to be able to serve. I have a really hard time getting a hold of Kevin. He's really good, but he got a big project at work, and so I asked him, I said, I know he couldn't do some of the subcommittee work, but I said, are you still with us on Public Works? And he said, I'm not sure. I don't think I can anymore. But
Okay.
he has to formally resign.
All right. I'm sure he will then.
Of course.
I thought he did, but, okay. I want to remind the community, June 4th is a community forum for steps to unveil the latest survey results. Again, that's June 4th at the Calendar House, called Coffee and Conversation, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Steps is doing things a little differently rather than during the week, which we know many people are busy. Doing this on a Saturday. There are babysitting services available, so if families, obviously this is really important to get the information to parents, so there will be babysitting services available on that day. Did Deputy Chief Palmieri slip out?
Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out. He was on Channel 3 representing the town, speaking about the STEP survey. So just a shout out to him for doing that.
Everywhere.
And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge the Planning and Zoning Commission. I attended the last meeting remotely, where they talked about the affordable housing plans. So it was great to see that got unanimous support and approval for our community.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about steps. Megan and Chief Palmieri again, Deputy Chief Palmieri, are going to be back at the
Second meeting in June.
second meeting in June to also discuss it with all of us as well.
Great.
So I think that's really important to be mindful of. But that'll be fine on the 4th also. If we can, let's go and attend it.
Great.
Anything else from anybody?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I just have a few things. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So I just want to congratulate the high school DECA Club and the FLBA Club. They had another great year. DECA had 24 students that competed at the state level, 10 qualified for the national competition, and 5 of those students attended. And FBLA, they have 8 members that will be attending the their national conference in Chicago next month. So they just they always do a great job, and it's nice to be part of that business advisory group and work with those students. The other thing I have is I just wanted to thank our community for Southington Pride 2022. After 3 weeks, there were about 19 events that took place over the 3 weeks, and just great turnout and participation on so many of the events. The monies that are raised are going to go back into the community. They're going to be used for programs for youth, young adults, individuals with special needs and disabilities, supporting programs for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's just too many people, too many groups and people to thank, but I do want to give a shout out to the police department. Chris Laporte and Kenny Kilzilski, they brought the vehicle command center right up to the family day at Camp Sloper, and that was a huge hit with the kids and the families, and it was great, to have their support. YMCA Camp Sloper staff, our local churches, the local businesses and restaurants that were on board this year. Obviously, the volunteers, it's critical to have these volunteers to be able to put on, 19 events. And the Pride, the Southington Pride Board of Directors. So, just the outstanding events over the last 3 weeks, which I'm really proud of. And one of the major sponsors, and this will tie into the STEPS survey, one of the major sponsors for Southington Pride is Wheeler Clinic. And I definitely want to give a much appreciated thank you to Wheeler Clinic. And I think, as many of you know, Wheeler Clinic is a family health and wellness center. And one of the areas that they focus on is behavioral health services for children, for adolescents, for adults. And, you know, they're in talking to their representative, they said that the need for programs and resources right now for mental health and behavioral services has just increased tenfold, and they can't keep up with it. It's very timely because now we have the STEP survey. It's been on, you know, our local TV stations. It's in our newspaper. You know, we clearly have, I've had residents reaching out. We clearly have an issue here in town that we really need to deal with, you know, the mental health of a lot of people in our town, especially the youth. And so, Madam Chair, I'm really happy to see. I was hoping that they would be at the next meeting, but if, you know, the second meeting in June is good. But I really think we need to, you know, people are asking what are going to be the next steps, and I think that's something that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, there's no further council matter, Madam Chair. I wanted to make a request to add an agenda item for executive session today for real estate matters. So if it's okay, I'd like to, would that fall under letter G? What's the,
You're going to go
After new business, right?
Prior to adjournment.
So after new business,
9B.
I'll make a motion to add item 9B, which would be executive session for real estate matters, and no decisions outside of executive session will be required.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Any discussion on the executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to report of special committees, please. Apple Harvest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Palmeri and myself attended the May 11th meeting for the Apple Harvest Committee. It was a brief meeting, but we did have an agenda item for the FOI seminar reminder on May 25th, which is this Wednesday at 6:30 in this room. The Apple Harvest Committee was made aware of that. The committee also received a letter from the United Way formally thanking us for the donation that was made to the United Way after their services to the Apple Harvest in 2021. Lastly, the festival coordinator is working on the fireworks vendor. We should see action on that, I believe, at our next meeting. He's looking at 2 vendors. Other than that, it's all pretty much standard business at this point. All the applications for the booths and sponsorships can be found on the town website. Councilman Palmeri, did I miss anything?
Just one thing, and then something from outside the meeting. We're trying to do things a little different this year and modernize a little bit. So there won't be an official Apple Harvest Gala, but instead we're looking to recognize and ultimately name and announce the Queen or King for our ambassadors at the opening ceremony. So that will hopefully add a little bit more emphasis to the opening ceremonies. And then last Thursday was the Southington High School Scholarship Night, and our Apple Harvest Festival Scholarship this year went to 2 of our ambassadors from this past festival. So congratulations to Amela Deshnika and Sophie Wojcicki. So those were our recipients
Very
this year,
nice.
and congratulations.
Good. Very good. Thank you. This sewer, Bill?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So the majority of our time last meeting was spent, we kind of codified a bunch of financial controls that Board of Finance member Tony Morrison drafted up. We're going to present them tonight, but my understanding is it has to go to Board of Finance first, so I'll make everybody wait with bated breath for those financial controls for the June meeting. Other than that, the other notable item of business is that the Plantsville Pump Station, which for people that don't know is right behind Volpe's, progress is now underway. There was some lead times due to COVID, but they appear to be making some serious progress. Val, anything else I missed?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on. Item 5, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I lead you to the Board of Finance minutes. 3 major things happened at the last Board of Finance meeting. The first one, of course, is setting of the mill rate. Scienton's mill rate is now 29.13, which is 1/10 of a mill higher than last year. The second thing, which obviously you are handling tonight, is the Board of Finance has heard the public hearings for the referendum, both of them, and they both were passed unanimously by the Board of Finance, and now they're in front of you tonight. And probably the third, and in my world, the biggest thing, we have budget reallocation on the agenda. So if you notice under the Board of Finance meetings, as we do, when you pass the budget at your last meeting, you'll see that year one of your capital budget, several items were in there called budget reallocation. So you approve the items, then you approve the funding for each item. In this particular case, it's the budget reallocation. Now, how does that work? That's where myself and the finance director meet with all the department heads. We try and put money together, use most of that as money that's not going to be spent in this fiscal year, and purchase capital for next fiscal year. Also, there's some additional funding that we get from revenue that we use for that. So if you look at that, you'll see those are all the things that you've already approved of, but now we're actually funding them. And Mr. Perry made a good point. We normally put $250,000 every year into our capital sidewalk account. This year, we're putting $500,000. So hopefully, we'll be able to get some more sidewalks done than we normally do. So.
Well, is that repairs or is that additions?
It could be either.
Okay.
It could be either.
'Cause I think some of that is for when residents are repairing as well, right?
Yep. It's when the town repairs or replaces, or when residents want to do it, they do the 60-40 split. So that's all available to them. So assuming you vote on the Board of Finance minutes, that $500,000 would be approved as of tomorrow for people to use for that. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have a quick
Go
question.
ahead.
Thank you to the town manager. I have a clarification on Councilman Perry's and the town manager's discussion. I don't think that we've actually added sidewalks with that money. Usually it's just tear out the old and replace with new.
Actually, we've added almost all the handicap sidewalks with that money.
Okay, so
Yeah, we've had to, if you notice around town, all the handicapped sidewalks, we've added those, yeah.
But if I may, Madam Chair, it is a misnomer, if you will. The monies can be used for repair or new installs, town new installs.
It's not, you're correct in saying that historically, we don't use a lot
Historically,
for that. Historically, it's used to repair sidewalks, because remember, new sidewalks come in usually through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the developer does them. So usually, that's what happens. But if the council or the Board of Education, through the council, wishes to do something, obviously, there's money for that. But in this particular case, yes, it could be used, and we have, over the last several years, put in all those access. If you notice, everywhere on the corners, you see the strip that you have it, and then either one has handicap access. So yes, we do use it for new sidewalk.
And Madam Chair, if I may, if there are suggestions, we do talk about these at Public Works often, so if anybody has suggestions, maybe direct it to Mike to add to Public Works for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on.
And now,
Madam Chair,
I'll hold off for a second on the next one. Oh, I'm sorry, do you have something on the Board of
Just on the
Finance?
minutes, you may want to check the date. It's January 12th, 2022. Just on the front page there, just before we approve them.
Oh,
I'm sorry, on the Board of Finance minutes?
Yes. See on the front?
Oh, absolutely, okay.
Yeah.
so we're going to change that?
Well, it's, the Board of Finance meeting was May 11th,
right.
correct?
Right.
So
Yeah, May
therefore,
11th.
it says May 11th on top, but in the second part, it says January. It should say May 11th in both categories.
Straight up.
Good pickup. He must be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to bring up a,
Right, and can I
Next
just, for the record, I just want to say, I am going to, for this item and for when it's on later for action, I am going to step down. I do not have a financial interest in this matter, but I do have a family member who is a party to the contract, so for transparency purposes, I'm going to step down.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Many of you remember that when we started the Plantsville project, it's got to be more than 5 years ago now, one of the things the council asked the town to do is work on a municipal parking lot so that when the parking on the street was reduced, we had a place for people to park. So thankfully for two groups, the owners of the Hop House and then the owners of the property to the south have agreed with the town of Southington. It's currently been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission to put a 39 parking space municipal lot. This is going to be separately funded from the Plantsville project. About 7 years ago or 6 years ago, I put in the budget, and the Town Council and Board of Finance approved it, $300,000 for this project. And we're able to do this project. We're able to do the Quinnipiac lot, which has already been done, and then we'll still have approximately $49,000-ish to do the pocket park when we get to that. The reason why we're holding off on the pocket park is, as you know, we're going to have major construction in downtown Plantsville, hopefully soon, and we'll need some staging areas. So we're not going to improve that corner piece because we maybe need it for staging. So that being said, 39-lot municipal parking lot. The normal lease, so was put together by our previous town attorney. It has the terms that we're very familiar with. The town is responsible for plowing, lighting, and insuring the property, and for future maintenance. But hopefully, after we build it, there won't be a lot of maintenance for approximately 15 or 20 years. So that being said, we recommend that the council approve.
Thank you. Any questions of town manager? Yep, Chris?
On the, I guess the second page, it talks about spaces designated as overnight parking spaces. It's not really typical for town property to have overnight parking,
Well,
so can you talk about
It's not town property. Remember, we're going to be leasing a portion of
property,
it.
but it's a municipal lot.
Correct. This one has residential units right there at the parking lot. So we wanted to make sure that overnight parking is allowed, because it's not allowed in municipal parking lots, and there'll be distinguishing spots for those. So it's similar to, we have a regulation in the parking authority where we give 6 or 8 spaces throughout town for rental, for people who rent, who don't have enough parking spaces, they're able to do that. These will be distinguished by when we put the parking lot in, that those will be for the tenants, because otherwise, they wouldn't be able to park overnight.
So can you tell me what other municipal parking lots have overnight parking?
We have 2 assigned to the the Bank of America lot. There's 2 assigned to the Groggy Frog lot, and there's 2 that are assigned to the, I guess I call it the South Center lot, you know, the one that's over by Testa's?
Okay.
And that's specifically through the parking authority. You need to go to my office, and you have to get an application. You have to put down a deposit, and I think there's 2, of the 6, 2 are currently leased out.
Okay.
It's actually a sticker we give the vehicle so they can park overnight.
Okay. So how do you come up with the ratio? So 2 in each of these lots, and now this one is giving 7 spots. How do you determine?
It's all part of the negotiations. It's what was needed to be part of the negotiations. So I can't speak to that because I didn't negotiate it. But the bottom line was the town attorney did a very good job in putting it. I'm sorry. What? Oh, I thought it was. No, it was Jeremy Taylor. Yeah, prior town attorney, Jeremy Taylor negotiated. So it was all part of the negotiations on that part of it.
Okay.
I have a quick question. The contract states 38 spaces. Is it 38 or 39?
It's approved for 39 based upon the planning and zoning approval.
So,
And one might be handicapped.
well,
I
it
know
says 36 standard spaces and 2 accessible spaces. So again, I'm just trying to, I guess, figure out.
Well, the plan, I can tell you is the planning and zoning approved at 39, so.
Now, I have another question with this. It's in this agreement here, it mentions Town of Southern Plantsville Municipal Parking Lot, the Quinnipiac River, and then it cites, obviously the map. Is there a reason the map is not included with the lease? Because obviously, or this agreement, because again,
The map is the approved plan from the planning and zoning. We could certainly, obviously, it'll be attached in the long run, I assume.
Yeah, just hard for me, obviously, to look at this and understand this whole scope of this project without, again, the contract states, or this lease agreement states, obviously, this property, and at the same time, it's not really showing all that except for words. And that's obviously, how do I just see just words? It's citing a map that isn't included. Now, what's the total cost of this parking lot? You mentioned $300,000 was put away, but what is the actual cost to doing this?
The estimate, I don't have the exact estimate in front of me, but I believe it's about $220,000 or $240,000. That's an estimate from the Public Works Division. I can get the exact number for you. I'll send it out, and that has an estimate that I can get to you.
Okay. And my next question is, any of the property owners paying towards any of this improvement? for questions right now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I have a question. We've been talking about the Plantsville parking for a long time, and there is also municipal parking at the Wells Fargo lot. Wasn't there an agreement there? No.
We asked that, it just didn't work out through corporate.
Gotcha.
wasn't-
Yeah, we asked. That's
We
what
asked
it was.
it, but didn't work
So
out.
yeah, I think as was mentioned, the safety improvements are going to drastically change the parking in downtown Plantsville. So I think that we don't have a lot of options as a town, and I'm glad that this is put forth before us, and I think it's going to be a positive improvement for the long term of the residents who can go down there and park, and for the businesses that need spaces for their customers to pull in and pull out. And I thank the businesses that signed on to this agreement because I think that, my personal opinion, I think they gave up a lot of their asset value by allowing this to be a municipal parking lot.
Very good.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Councilman Martin was talking about, parking's always been a thorn in our side. My many years on planning and zoning, parking always seems to be an issue. And we had almost struck a deal about 5 or 6 years ago with some of these properties, and it fell apart. So I'm very delighted now that there are a couple of businesses down there that are willing to give up. They're giving up their land for municipal parking. So I applaud these businesses looking out for the best interests of town, and I appreciate them doing that.
Madam Chair, same here. I'm 100% dead against downtown Plantsville renovation and removing the parking as part of that renovation without having additional parking down there. This is, for me,
On-street parking, you mean?
this is a must for me. The on-street parking is being eliminated, so we have to find additional parking somewhere down there because the lots are full down there today. They're full. And I'm concerned about the businesses down there without adding additional parking when we remove the parking right in front of their business. So I'm thankful that there's an option for the town, and I fear if we don't do this that we will negatively impact some of the businesses down there.
All right, thank you very much. Everybody's all set with that. Let's move on.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Town Attorney's report.
Madam Chair, just briefly, you already got your presentation from the Board of Education regarding your referral. Thank you, Kathy. It did pass unanimously from the Planning and Zoning Commission back to you, so it's on your agenda for action tonight. Second issue is the Charter Revision Commission has its final last regularly scheduled meeting this Wednesday. That meeting's at 5 o'clock. The draft report was voted on 2 meetings ago. Public hearing was held last week. The meeting on Wednesday is going to be for the Charter Revision Commission to adopt a final draft report, which will be sent over to Clerk Larkin's office and then distributed to the Town Council for review, and you can either approve as is, or you can send it back to the Charter Revision Commission for suggestions, and then it can come back to you again. So depending on what this council wants to do depends how long the process will go. But we'll talk about that when it gets to you and you decide what you want to do on it. And lastly, I just want to remind everybody, it's on the agenda, but you have there's the Foia training that's scheduled that Councilwoman DiPaolo, I think, kind of spearheaded a few months back. That is this Wednesday. I believe it's 6:30. And just encouraging everybody to come out. It's going to be very informative for what the town manager has told me.
And just
It's also going to be live streamed, and it's also going to be recorded. You can watch it anytime you wish.
that's what I was going to ask. I may have a conflict, so it's going to be available. Technology will be working.
If we work very long hours tonight, we should have it all working,
Okay.
certainly, for that matter. So
Thank you.
Hopefully all our systems will be back up tomorrow sometime.
Any questions for the town attorney?
Just a quick question. Alex, when the final draft comes to us, then at what point is it marked for a public hearing? Do we have to mark it for a public hearing?
You do. The town council will have to hold a public hearing as well. So there's a
So
minimum of 3, a bare minimum of 3. 2 at the commission and 1
One
with
at the
you.
council level?
Absolutely.
So would we do that at the next meeting, or, it can't, I guess my question is, if the draft comes to us will the draft come to us at a meeting or prior to the
My
meeting?
suggestion would be from a timing standpoint, they have their public hearing, the draft comes to you on the meeting on the 13th. Then you set your public hearing and your second meeting in June, because you do not want to have a charter revision public hearing. So the best thing to do is have it presented by who's ever presenting it on the 13th. I don't know if it's going to be the town attorney or the chair. That'll be on the 13th. Any questions that are asked at that point, if the council feels comfortable in moving it to a public hearing, then you have my office schedule the public hearing through the town attorney's office for your meeting on 2 weeks from that date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chris?
Just one other point to charter revision. I couldn't attend the public hearing, but I did attend the last meeting prior to the public hearing on May 10th, and Vicki, you were there too. I would just ask, moving forward, and I already mentioned this at that meeting, and I mentioned it to the town attorney, for any of our town meetings, certainly I don't think it'll apply to charter revision moving forward, but I would ask that any public meeting, public communication is allowed in the meeting before or prior to action from the members. So the members voted, and then after the vote was taken, then the public was allowed to speak in that meeting. It just doesn't make sense, if the public is going to make an impact, and has some information that's relevant to the vote before them, it's a moot point if it's afterwards, so.
And I think you'll be pleased to hear that the chairman of the Charter Revision Commission called me this afternoon and asked me to specifically move public communication forward. The revised agenda, which I don't believe is posted, it's in Clerk Larkin's email. I don't think she has access to it yet, but I'm sure she'll post it when her email is back up and running.
Thank you. I truly appreciate it. I just do think it's important for people to, just like our meetings, people speak, and then we vote on it afterwards, so I appreciate that change. Thank you.
Very good. Is that it, Attorney?
Oh, that's all I have, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open up public communication right now. We'd ask anyone that has any issue to please come forward, state your name and address the council. Got 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody. It's Regina Coviello, 12 Beecher Street. Some of the things I'm talking about, actually, you guys were talking about. First, I just wanted to say thank you to Southington Pride. I took my 2.5-year-old granddaughter there, and let me tell you, at the festival, she had a blast. The train, the bouncy things, it was great. And then also went to the comedy show, had a blast. Okay, so shout out to them. It was great. And then the other thing is, I kind of have a question, but that you can think about, and that was because there's some people that are trying to, in the town, that would like to have open questions and answers. Like, we can come up here and, give our thoughts, but they want to know, okay, what can we do for open, questions, answers? And one of the people I talked to, he mentioned Jack Perry's, the discussion group that he had, because I guess he had really enjoyed that. So they also mentioned whether it was possible to, even for these meetings, the discussion meetings, to do a virtual, questions, they can do it online. So I just didn't know if any of that, could be done, but I figured I would mention it. And then the other thing, and I actually was talking to, I call him Mr. Palmera. I went to school with him. But I was talking to him because it's kind of about that. I had posted about Bristol opening a new homeless shelter and how I wish Southington had one. That's all I said. And, of course, you give good feedback, bad feedback, and everything. I was given some information, about some of the services available in town. And like we were saying earlier, there are a lot of residents that don't know. Okay, I've been here 56 years, so I knew about Bread for Life. I knew, that. But I didn't know, until actually someone answered me about the calling 211 and all of that. But even some of the services we have, they don't know about. And where to go. People said, well, where do I bring stuff, clothes, or where do I bring this? I knew it, so I told them. But there are a lot of people that don't know it's available. So I was just kind of thinking maybe I don't know how we can get the people to know, get the word out there, It's great, we were talking about those signs, I think that's great. I mean, great, get some out there. But is there any way, like, hey, we all get taxes, put like, have a paper in there to tell the town residents, these are your services, or some way, whether it's advertising what we have, just so that the people know. That's kind of what I, want to talk about, just to get out there, because I know there's a lot of people, like they were saying earlier, we don't know. We don't know what's going on, so to get it out there. That's about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Gloria?
Gloria Brown, 587 Burrett Street, Plantsville. I just want to share with you an email that I did send to you on April 21st. It says, as a retired teacher, I was delighted to learn that Southington resident Christopher Poulos was one of only 5 people selected to be inducted into the National Teacher Hall of Fame in Kansas this year. What an honor for this man who has been Connecticut Teacher of the Year and is on the Southington High School Wall of Honor for his many accomplishments, including being on this wonderful town council. I urge the members of the town council to recognize Chris Poulos for this amazing honor at a town council meeting. I got a response from the chairperson who said, I have nothing but respect for Chris Poulos, and I'm sure we will recognize him at the appropriate time. I wrote back, why is now inappropriate? There are only 130 people in the National Teacher Hall of Fame, which was started 30 years ago. Chris has been honored this past weekend by the National Education Association. He traveled to Washington. The Connecticut Education Association is planning to recognize him, and I would urge you, I heard a couple of people who were very deserving this evening. You spoke about people who had been honored with, a proclamation. I would ask you to please do the same thing for this person who is such a wonderful representative of the town of Southington. Thank you.
Who's next?
Hi, Bob Sargent, 25 Birchcrest Drive. Tonight I was listening, I hadn't even heard anything about this Plantsville parking, but I'm kind of intrigued with some of this. You have overnight parking for somebody that has apartment for their tenants? Because I'm a property manager of a couple of 3 and 4 families out in Bristol. I can tell you they don't have that. And if I could get a hold of that and be the one that got did you say a lease on it? I can get more for my
The town of
units.
Southington has the lease on the property.
What?
The town of Southington will have a lease on the property. It's owned by the property owner who has the tenant.
So because as Tom said, parking's, Mike said, parking's always a problem. I spent the weekend painting lines in a parking lot of one of these houses because there's never enough parking. If you're giving overnight parking to one landlord, it's worth more money. I'd love to have a spot that the town plowed, took care of, and paid for. And I could tell my tenant, go ahead, you can leave your car over there. I'm gonna get $150 a month more for it. But that's not for everyone that owns properties. That's for the one guy. That doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
But just for clarification, the parking lot is owned by the landowners, not by the town?
Oh,
So the landowners are allowing the town to use the property.
That's why I think this
But the
Oh, okay,
yeah,
maybe
so
I
it's a private.
This is not town property. The town is leasing the property so it can have a municipal parking lot. So when
Are
you
we paying
negotiate with
$250 for $200,000 to do the parking lot?
paying, I'll get the exact number, but it's around $200,000 to do the parking lot, just like we did with the one in Dean Stove, just like we did with the one at Bank of America. We pay to do the parking lot, and then we maintain the parking lot. We don't own the property.
Okay.
We don't own the property.
Then I guess I misunderstood it a little bit because, Yeah, I mean, if you're handing out parking spots,
Yeah.
they're worth
We
money.
need 'em.
They're worth money to a landlord.
See,
believe me.
but you understand, if you're a landlord, you know you're not gonna wanna negotiate with a town for a municipal
No.
parking lot if you own the land, if you give up your tenant's
Yeah,
parking
you
spots.
wouldn't deal with it.
There
Okay,
you
I
go.
misunderstood it.
That's
I
okay.
misunderstood.
Glad we can clarify it for you.
Anybody else?
Hi, everyone. Katie Wade, 39 Madeline Lane. Good evening. I'm impressed with how this council seems to be approaching the issue of panhandling in our community with compassion, so I just wanted to say that. I wanted to tell you that when I come here to speak, it's because it's what we're supposed to do. This is where we, the people, come to talk to you, our elected representatives. This is how it's supposed to work, and it can't only be things that you'd like to hear. But tonight I would like to grant Councilperson Morelli his request from the last meeting that more people come to discuss their love of the American flag, which reminds me, congratulations, Mr. Riccadone. I was raised in a family that has always put love of country at the forefront of our values. My great-grandfather lost an arm in the Pancho Villa raids. My grandfather was a career Army officer, joining a year prior to the attacks on Pearl Harbor. He fought in World War II, came ashore at Normandy, and helped liberate Europe from Nazi occupation. He named his first son, my Uncle Bert, after his friend that died in the war. He served in Korea, was stationed in Japan, Germany, and Texas, eventually retiring as a lieutenant colonel. Both my uncle and father joined the Army during the Vietnam War. My father resigned his commission shortly before I was born. My uncle made a career of it. I was able to attend his retirement from the Pentagon in the 90s. My husband was a Navy nuke for 12 years and was twice deployed to the Middle East aboard the Harry S. Truman, which is to say that I love the American flag and all it represents, and I'd like to think I'm also raising my children with those values. I believe there are more pressing issues for our town, but if this is what you want to hear, I'm happy to share. The public hearing that took place on April 25th regarding the new ordinance that now prevents Southington from flying the Pride flag or the Ukrainian flag or the Greek flag was an important night to a lot of people in this town. People who are not regular speakers in this room came and told you their personal stories about what this means to them. That's hard to do. I don't think anyone in here, regardless of your position on the ordinance, could have truly listened to some of those experiences and not have been struck by the courageousness it took to share them. So to Councilperson Morelli, who referred to his constituents who spoke so bravely and honestly as troops who had been rallied, I mean, I'd say those are pretty good troops if you can get them. But I want to assure you, Mr. Morelli, there really are no troops in town, just your neighbors. And using your platform to suggest otherwise feels divisive and like it's the wrong direction for our town. The people you represent want this council to work to find common ground and to act with common decency when you can't. I really do not like to come here and be negative, despite how it might seem. I do think that all of you volunteer your time for this town because you care about Southington. So as always, I thank you for that, and I thank you for your attention this evening.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Anybody else? Last call. Anyone else? We're going to close public communication. Let's open up item 8, old business, action on referral from Planning and Zoning for ordinance appropriating $6,920,000 for costs related to the Southington High School roof project. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Do I have to read this word for word? Each of these?
The chair just read it, so you're
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve letter A as read by the chair.
I'll second.
And Chris is second. Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes.
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Item B, action on the referral from Planning and Zoning Ordinance appropriating $16,945,000 for costs related to the Southington High School Athletic Fields project.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to briefly thank the athletic director and the superintendent and all of the Board of Ed members that were this is a huge project for the town. It's a large dollar amount, but it's one that is going to last even longer than the original facilities lasted. And I am looking forward to supporting this referendum, and I know that this brings a great deal of pride to many people to see those fields for the students and the athletes. People from outside of town always are raving about our facilities.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Just
yes,
just for clarification, since we're in discussion, this is item B, correct?
Yes.
So item B reads 6,920,000.
No, that was the first.
No,
That was the first
That
one.
agenda was
The second
replaced
one
on
is
Friday.
16.9.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had the
Okay,
Current
very
agenda is
good.
Very good.
exactly the way the chair read it.
I'm glad.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item C, action on the public hearing ordinance appropriating $6,920,000 for costs related to the Southington High School roof project.
Motion to
And authorizing
Read
an
the whole
issue
thing.
of $6,920,000 bonds and notes to finance for the appropriation of the amount of such bonds and notes to be reduced to the amount of project grants received, setting dates for referendum November 8th, 2022.
So
May-
moved.
Thank you, Chris. Chris.
Second.
And Paul, you seconded it. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item D, action on the public hearing ordinance appropriating $16,945,000 for costs related to the Southington High School Athletic Fields project and authorizing the issue of $16,945,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation and setting date for the referendum of November 8th, 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Absolutely.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item E, a report on the Board of Finance.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the report of finance for May 11th, 2022, and also note the correction in the first sentence, changing the date to May 11th, 2022.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may you call the roll, please, on the action, please?
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item F, I'm going to note in the minutes that Mr. Chairman, Councilman Dietzick and Councilwoman DiPaolo have left the dais. May I have a
Madam Chair,
motion?
if I may, before that,
Yeah.
thanks to our Public Works Director, the sum is $207,706.
Very good. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes? Go ahead, Jack.
So I want to thank the town manager for answering some of my questions earlier. I have some more questions, and I think it's because not all the information is here, but I appreciate the dollar amount because that was obviously a huge concern of mine on what the dollar amount is going to be. In here, it doesn't really state, these 7 spaces designated over night parking, who would get control of those. It kind of mentions a little bit about the parking authority, but at the same time, it doesn't really, it just says reserving 7 spaces. So I'd be curious, again, where those are going. And for all transparency purposes, I think it's important that, again, when issues come across any of us council people, I appreciate Councilman Dietzick stepping away because he has 2, it looks like based on this agreement and the signing of this contract, it looks like he owns 2 of these properties. So I do think that, it's great that he walked away. Just a little bit more transparency, though, I think is owed to our community. Again, there's just a lot, with this. I want to see, more parking, throughout town. There's a lot of business owners, I think, that would also, be interested in maybe making their parking lot municipal owned, especially if the town is spending $207,000 for a 20-year, lease on a piece of property for $1. It's the construction, it's adding value. I would like to see a longer-term lease rather than just a 20-year, because we're making an investment. We heard earlier this evening, the high school roof, we said 20-year warranty on it, or guarantee, or expectancy on that, and it lasted 27 years. So I just think that in 20 years from now, Southington, we're going to be going backwards instead of really planning more forward. So that's another issue. Again, it being municipal, I don't know if 2 accessible parking spots for ADA purposes is adequate. I want to make sure that this is welcoming to all residents in town, especially if it's municipal, being maintained and paid for as far as the construction. I think there is value that is added to the businesses, and again, just the town paying the whole bill here, and some of these spots being still reserved. Again, it just, there's property owners that will be benefiting. One of them is Councilman Giesecke. So those are
Chair,
obviously.
I'm sorry. Just a point of order.
No,
we shouldn't be making comments personal, Madam Chair. As a point of order, Robert's rules does not allow us to admonish and call out other council people like you're doing multiple times. Please, Madam Chair.
I don't think that falls underneath Robert's rules. I'm just mentioning, based on this contract that's in front of us, the member.
Before us, it's seconded.
So
Is there
again,
anything else, Jack?
I would urge that, this is something, I don't know if anybody else has any, discussion on this, but,
Can I ask for a motion to table?
Just let Jack finish he has the floor right now.
yeah, well,
Motion to table will supersede even that, so I think so. I don't know if
I'll second that motion to table, just because, again, we don't even have the
Madam
map
Chair, we
here.
can't keep talking if there's a motion, a second on the table, as a point of order.
Okay, there's a motion to table on the floor. Would you call the roll, please, Madam Clerk?
Perry,
Yes, the table.
Chaplinsky,
No to table.
Del Santo,
No.
Lombardi,
No to table.
Morelli,
No to table.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Triano.
No. Brings our motion. Back to Jack.
Yeah, so again, I don't know how we're going to vote on this when there's certain things in this lease that, again, us as elected officials, we're supposed to be doing what's best for our community and not select individuals. So with that being said, I will be voting no on this evening.
Okay, very good, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Perry,
No.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes, thank you to the landowners.
Palmieri,
No.
Triano.
Yes. Motion carries. Excuse me.
Okay. Okay, the chair is going to step out to use the facilities.
Just
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. The chair is stepping away, so I'm going to take over for a second. Please. We're going to move item 9, new business, and we're going to see, Councilwoman DiPaolo and Councilman Giesecke. So new business, we have item A, tax refunds.
I make a motion to approve the tax refunds presented in our packets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Nope. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
And,
and Ms. Triano.
right, so we'll have, the motion passes 8-0. 8-0. Okay, so we need a motion to move into executive
motion,
session.
Mr. Vice Chair, to go into executive session, barring the press and the public, but allowing town manager.
Town attorney.
Town attorney.
To discuss
Real estate matters.
outside of just.
No action outside of the executive session.
So we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay, so we're
Remain
going
in
to,
this room right here.
we'll take 5 minutes and allow everybody to say hello or say goodbye. And we'll do the executive session in this room once everybody leaves. chair's gonna go. She's gonna smack me.